Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Home Service Hustle. I am your host, Jonathan Bannister, and today I am with a special guest, Ryan Chute from Wizard of Ads. Ryan, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So, Ryan, I've over the last couple months with you working with a couple of our clients, I've had the pleasure of spending a little time with you, getting to know you a little bit. You are obviously someone that has a wealth of knowledge packed inside that mind of yours. I remember the first time I met you, I thought I was meeting a real life wizard. So I thought it was kind of ironic because I didn't know a whole lot about you and the story. And then I was like, all right, well, I got to get on this call. Like my client asked me to, and then like there's a real wizard on the call, and I'm just trying to figure out what's going on. So tell us a little bit about let's go in your early days, right? So you said you're a high school dropout and you're from Canada. So let's kind of start there and get to know Ryan a little bit.
Yeah, I didn't fit in school very well. I was a guy who caught onto things really quickly, and back then I had no idea. Everyone just thought I was lazy and stupid. So I kind of you accept that fate when you're a young person sometimes. And really, what I wanted to kind of prove for myself after a period of time after getting out of school and getting into business was that I was more than that. So right out of school, I went into the military, got in the Army, and got dug trenches and got shot at for a living. And while very interesting as a young individual, not so great when it gets to a point where you're not getting paid enough to throw yourself into these situations. I was blessed to become a marksman in the military, and sniper training allowed me to kind of get a little bit more of a discipline and really focus in on some of those more relevant leadership style stuff in the military. But my family was, retailers, and I got into the retail business with them and kind of worked through the gulags of retail for a lot of years, and moved out west, which is Alberta in Canada here, so that I could spread my wings without being under my family's, purview. And that moved me into the automotive business when the family had sold the family furniture store. So that took me on a trip around the world to see a whole bunch of stuff and to experience a lot of things to do with sales and automotive, and dealing with fairly significant operations across the world. And one thing led to another, and now I'm with the Wizard of Ads, having met Roy back in 2015.
All right, so we've got a lot there that we're going to unpack on. So
Yeah.
I'm super intrigued on. Tell me what made you feel that you like weren't good in school, and I think you told us that you were lazy and dumb or something, right? Like I can relate to this because I was a bad student. I hated school, but when I could find an actual teacher that knew how to teach me, and that's all it really took. Like she knew how to explain things a certain way to me, that she knew I wasn't lazy or dumb or stupid. But when someone knew how to teach me the right way, I could ace the class. But school was boring to me. Like I didn't enjoy reading these books and trying to memorize the stuff that they wanted me to do. It just never caught my attention. So what was it with you that made you, not be a good student or not like school?
I think a lot of the same things, Jonathan. I was a real quick study. Many years later, when I met a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine still today, Tim Brennan, who runs Talent Sorter, one of the recruitment tools that I use quite frequently with my clients. He said to me, because he gave me the profile and had me do it, and he goes, a lot of people probably called you lazy and stupid, didn't they? I'm like, yeah, all the time. And he goes, you're like ridiculous how smart you are. And people assume that because you tune them out and you're completely somewhere else, that you're not very bright. When the reality is that you're brighter than them. And at the end of the day, you're just tired of pandering to the lowest common denominator. And that was a real big deal for me, just like your teacher was for you, to teach you kind of, holy cow, you've got some worth, and you are important, and these things that you have been conflicted with for a number of years aren't actually a conflict at all. That they're your true reality. They're
Right.
who you are. Um, and I proved that to myself when I went to university, and I was on the honors roll and on the dean's list, and graduated with honors. So yeah, it was a validation over time, but it certainly didn't start out that way.
Yeah, I think for me, it's there were certain subjects in school that I didn't understand, or I felt like I could even think then at 14, 15, 16, 17 that I will never use this, no matter what I have as a job. I'm never going to use this again. So like algebra was one of them. Certain parts of the English language, like when they started teaching about participles and stuff, I'm like, you know what? Like I understand it. We'll never need to know this again. Speaking to anyone the rest of my life, I never need to know any kind of math that has like letters and symbols and things in the equation. And so for that reason, my brain would not retain any of the information, would just completely
Yeah.
shut it off. And it's
Yeah.
the same way, like I've never read fiction books before. And that came at a very young age for me, as I said, like, why do I want to waste my time reading something that is completely made up? So I've always read nonfiction books and autobiographies and things of that nature. So I think that's just how my brain has been wired. So I could find some teachers that would articulate it a certain way to say, yes, like you probably will never use this again, and would try to make, rational it with me. And then all of a sudden I could ace the class, but it was still boring to me.
Yeah.
I wasn't a good student in college either, just because I think I was a better student in college because I was paying for it. But I still was sitting there going like, this is nothing more than you're lecturing. I'm going to take notes. I'm going to memorize this stuff. And then I'm never going to use this in real life ever again. So I never could really understand the whole concept. And I think there's a lot of wealthy billionaires that are out there today that kind of feel that colleges get more and more like a joke anyways. It's nothing more than a big, expensive piece of paper that you're shooting for.
Yeah, there's certainly a degree of, I would argue in my father's or grandfather's time, it would have been, prestigious and important and relevant to go to university. Today, it's kind of a minimum expectation. And it's in a lot of ways can be a money grab, for that simple fact. Canada's way more affordable than the US when it comes to that as well. So I was quite blessed to go through the whole process without having any financial burden. So I worked at the family business in the administrative offices during my time at university, and eventually finished my last year of university about 10 years after I started it, so that I could say that I did it, and just did night classes until I got the last few electives done and over the curb.
I mean, when you used to have to, if your degree in today's times, if you're looking, when you tell people like you can get a master's degree on YouTube basically. But, if you start thinking 25, 30 years ago and like, well, you would never tell someone like you can get a degree with the encyclopedia. It's like, yeah, it's just not the same.
It's just not the same. Yeah.
So let's talk about the sales. So I was super intrigued seeing your number one sales trainer in the world. So was this in automobile sales?
Yeah, this was for the company that I worked for. There's about 300 trainers in the company at the time, and I was traveling around the world. It started off in Canada to begin with, going to dealerships for 3 to 5 days, teaching them how to do sales processes live with real customers, and then driving sales throughout an event. We called them private sales, and it was quite a popular thing a number of years ago, and that evolved over time, and eventually I got to the point where I was really looking at how can I dig deeper into this, and they invited me to become the lead guy for Australasia, so Pacific Rim and Australia, New Zealand, those kinds of places. And really what I did was I went in and I kind of built out the training for those categories, and then spent my time working with the manufacturers like, Fiat and Jeep and Hyundai and all of the different brand manufacturers, and got them to coordinate with their organization, the individual dealer levels to send my teams in to do those. So I would then train the trainers, and the trainers would be go out in the field and do the same kinds of strategies. Would be setting up their marketing and doing the whole the whole production for them on all of these things. So
So how
um,
did you get into the automobile sales side? Like, did you get experience there underneath you before you went into the trainer side of it?
yeah, when I was out west, I was in furniture, and then after we sold the furniture stores, I moved over to the automotive industry. I became a business manager and then a general manager, and from there, really just had the opportunity to travel, which was my real passion. I always wanted to do training and traveling, and one day, this guy named Shannon calls me up because I'd sent a letter to him, as I do with my marketing. And the letter is like, "Hey, do you still have your vehicle? Blah blah blah." And chasing after, he goes, "Hey, who did this letter for you?" He goes, "Well, I did it." He goes, "This is great. Did you know that this is exactly what we do?" And he tells me about his company and takes me down the rabbit hole, and I end up applying there and saying, "Hey, I'd love to do this," and did it for a number of years.
That's really interesting. So tell me, what is a couple things that you feel that you took from automobile sales or the sales trainer side that you've been able to kind of, use with you the rest of your life? I mean, that's some tricks of the trade that you've taken from that industry that have really made a big impact for you.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of something Grant Cardone said. That sales is literally everything in life. Be it for business or be it for being leaders within your organization, your spouse. If you're a minister standing up in front of your practitioners, all of it matters, and all of it is selling, and all of it is creating persuasive buy-in, and that's really what we're talking about here is sales is everything. But probably the fundamental thing that I've come to realize, particularly through the automotive sales, is that sales is really about intent. If you intend to be evil, then you're going to be evil. Most of those are short-term strategies that are going to generate lots and lots of revenue for a very short period of time until you basically get called out or caught and move on to the next one. I have quite literally been a part of and party to some of the most despicable acts that you've ever seen or will see in sales, as much as the reverse of that, and some of the best examples of professional selling. And that really had me, look inside myself and really make that choice of what road am I going to walk down, what angle am I going to approach this with. And I'd always had this servant leader mindset and this heart of a person who's going to do what's right for people, and that karma will sort everything out.
Yep, I'm a big believer in that myself. All right, so we're going to do a random question moment. All right.
Yeah,
So I didn't see in your list of things that you've done in your past that you were a bartender. You ever been a bartender?
I have not been a bartender. No.
All right, me either. All right. So if Ryan were a bartender, which famous person would you like to serve
Oh,
and
gee.
why?
Um, well, if I get to talk to them too, then
Yeah,
man,
you
there's
get to serve them and kind of shoot the shit and say, you know, here's your Manhattan. Like I've got a thing about a lot of things that I've wanted to ask you if I ever had this moment.
yeah, there's so many extraordinary people. Abraham Lincoln certainly sits on top of that list. One of the most fascinating individuals of all time. Nicholas Tesla,
Mm,
a big huge fan of his work, as I've learned more and more about him in later years. School wasn't too kind to Tesla, lot friendlier to Edison. Um,
yeah.
so it's those kinds of people for sure. I don't think anyone would want to pass up a chance to talk to Jesus if that was an opportunity. You'd be crazy not to. I don't know what he drinks. Maybe a mocktail, uh, possibly some wine. Right? I'll just serve him water. He can figure it out from there.
Yeah, he'll make
Uh,
it turn into whatever he wants.
that's right. Yes. Yeah. Those would definitely be the
Yeah.
ones that come to mind. Randomly.
Yeah, I mean, it's now I'm super curious. I'm gonna have to ask this question a lot moving forward because like some of those are some of like truly thought out, in depth, genius people that you would have great conversations with. But Now I'm curious of some of the other guests in the future I'll ask, and some of the answers I'll get there. It'll probably be like more Hollywood related or something. But like, yeah, I would enjoy thoroughly all three of those that you just said. So you mentioned in Tesla, like, we'll have some things to talk about here towards the end of the show, because I'd like to hear kind of your thoughts on. Well, let's just talk about now. What do you think? Was what do you think happened with Tesla and with a lot of his inventions and stuff?
Well, I think it really just comes down to the same thing of everything in life. Really, you have this opportunity to take advantage of a situation and exploit the opportunity as it is, and have the wherewithal to do that. Edison was an incredibly intelligent human being who was very good at um, persuasive. I don't want to say manipulation, but certainly persuasion and influence, and talking to the right people and getting in the right places and leveraging the money and the people around that. Where Tesla was much more about the passion of the project. And um, really, I mean, if we were to call a spade, Edison knew how to sell stuff and Tesla didn't. Uh, the pure nature of Tesla was that of a pure academic looking to better the universe, without the astute business acumen that he needed to be able to, capitalize on that in a way that ultimately is going to serve the universe, which is what he wanted to do, based on what I know of him.
Yeah.
And that ultimately, that had him do exactly what he did, which was kind of disappear into the ether with all of his brilliant ideas being appreciated by those who could capitalize on it.
And I don't think a lot of people even know his story. They and if they've done research on it, like, probably, I think I came to find out a lot about Tesla through just watching a lot of documentaries. Usually I'm watching documentaries on aliens and things like that, and Tesla's stuff is like fitting in right there in the category. So I got intrigued. But I think it's really ironic that Elon decided to name his company that, and then you speak on how intelligent he was, but he really didn't have the sales and the charisma side of him on how to properly get in front of the funding and the right people with the ideas that he had. And then you take somebody like Elon Musk, and he's got both. Like, he is
Yeah.
a very, very intelligent person that also knows how to sell shit, and he knows how to run very profitable businesses. And it's almost like it's like he's going to be able to um, really put a stamp and, on the whole Tesla story, and maybe be able to. Well, I wonder if he's like truly working through some things there, Elon, and wanting to make sure that a lot of the things that Tesla wasn't able to do, that he's going to make sure that he does them for him.
I've seen glimpses of that with Elon. He opened up the source code for Tesla operating systems, and those types of indicators of, yes, we are trying to better the planet. At the end of the day, if we all operate off of a single energy cell platform, for example, for electric cars, that we can reach an economies of scale, and we can do the things that do move us off of fossil fuels and all the other things that will never be able to sustainably serve us till the end of time. So
Right.
how do we make these adjustments sooner than later, so that we do have the opportunity to thrive as a society?
What's your feelings or thoughts on, that there has always been energy sources located like here on Earth and different places that, could sustain energy life for millions and millions and millions of years, like pretty much, um, energy that will never run out ever, that is currently here, that we've had access to, and we've never, tapped into it because of the oil tycoons and stuff like that.
Well, lobbyists are certainly a big proponent of what works right now, and even a lot of those companies, oil companies, Shell is a good example of it, are dipping their toes deeply into the renewable energy spaces. It is without a doubt the future that the planet has to look forward to, from greenhouse gases and emissions. as you travel around the world as I have, particularly in the automotive industry, the conversations that are being had about emissions and air exposure and all that stuff in the European states is huge. It's significant. You're going to pay £80 if you accidentally nudge your nose into the center of London. As a fine for driving the wrong kind of car downtown. So you start looking at the ways that these things are going to be imposed on people so that they end up having to, move to those choices regardless, are really a reality. It's just a matter of time. You get back over to the North American market, and we're in the Wild West still. Like, I mean, all the way Wild West.
No, you're absolutely right. Like, you look at the the countries that you're speaking of, and if you were to ever see like some of the vehicles that we currently drive, that we see every single day, these jacked up dualies, and they look like, to them it would look like a real life monster truck, because they're driving such economical vehicles and stuff in
Yeah.
all of these Eastern companies.
It's very true. Yeah, you don't see F-150s or Ram
No.
1500s or Chevy 1500s, over in England. That's for sure. Most of the time, you'd never make it down the road without crashing into somebody. The roads are so narrow.
All right, so let's pivot a little bit, and let's talk for a second about you. So you have your Wizard of Ads business. So kind of walk us through what that concept is, how that has worked, and isn't it kind of like a division of something bigger? But this is your branch that you solely have.
Yeah, really good question. Roy and I are direct partners. It's kind of like a law firm in that configuration. And then there's about 70 partners in total, and they all have an individual partnership with Roy as the main entity, Wizard of Ads Incorporated. Now, Roy, for the most part, doesn't take on new clients at all. He might take on one or two, in a year, and that would be a lot for him. So the partner group was formed about 20 years ago to be able to continue to handle the on flux of demand that we have for Wizard of Ad services, the approach that we take. And essentially we all work independently, but we all work with each other in particular groups based off of what the client needs. So I decided back in 2017, when I became a partner, that I was going to be a niche. My specialties were in more complex sales, more sophisticated equipment, automotive furniture. I had done some work with some manufacturing clients in the past. So it was an opportunity for me to go, yeah, I can really make a difference here. And what I found, particularly when it comes to the choices between retail and home services, is that there's such a good energy in home services. The owners are eager to learn and to try things and to be in it and invested in it. Where retail is just a little bit kind of tired, and they're just like sick of the slog, and they're just kind of going through the motions in a lot of cases. A whole bunch of them have really just reverted back to this short-term thinking, and live by the month and die by the month, and all of this negative kind of positioning where they're just sitting in survival mode, operating from a position of fear, sometimes even desperation. And it's a bit exhausting. And as COVID hit and things really pushed hard on the digital components of retail to be successful, I said, hey, look, where I'm going to make the biggest difference is with people who are going to talk to people in the field, in front of people. And what's not going to change is, we're always going to have technicians and comfort advisors and technical advisors and plumbers and electricians and you name it, out face to face with clients, and I can really help them elevate their game. When I thought about it, it wasn't about me helping the guy directly at the front line. that, the Joe Craceras and Victor Rancours with his training apps and people like that who are doing a wonderful job in that space. I champion those people. I believe in those people. I love their content. I see them doing great things. Power Selling Pros is another just wonderful organization from my perspective, of providing those hands-on frontline training services. My role spends more time in the back, helping out build the culture, build the systems that support the culture, build the strategy that builds the culture, so that when we find the right people who fit the company and the organization, the values, that we have the policies and procedures like your compensation plans, recruitment plans, all of those things that keep the person retained and happy, healthy and wealthy within the organization, and that we build these real simple decision-making structures that steer the intent and nature of the sales training that they're employing, be it Joe Craceras stuff or whoever. At the end of the day, it's not, my goal isn't to replace anyone, but to kind of sit on the top level, that guy who kind of sits in the shadows behind the person who matters the most, the owner of the company, and really steer the cultural narrative and the leadership narrative within the organization with a perspective of sales, with a perspective of customer-oriented relational selling experiences.
So is there different components, obviously, to what you do? I mean, I've obviously been involved in maybe just a small piece of it. So kind of walk us through, what are the different pieces that you guys offer? And when somebody comes to you, are you looking at the long-term advertising and branding strategy with them, or is it like taking a full look of the whole scope of their business and putting something together?
I'll say a little bit of both, uniquely to me and my teams, and it's very unfair for me to speak of any of the other teams. I'm the only one who really brings in the scope and level of sales operations experience that I serve people with. And what I was speaking about moments ago was really kind of the piece that I research, champion, and support within mine. The Wizard of Ads piece, which is purely the marketing strategy piece, falls into three major categories. The first and foremost is exactly what you just said, the marketing strategy as a whole. We live in a world right now where people like you and I are working together. I have absolutely zero interest and intention of being a digital marketer ever in the history of marketing ever, because I know how hard a work it is, and I know the burden that you guys have to bear with being measured by a lead, any lead, no matter how many leads. Just get me the leads, and we'll sort it out from there,
Right.
Regardless of what seasonality demand is and everything else. So. I'd much rather be the champion for the digital marketing team and help build a strategy that matches with the whole marketing strategy. So marketing strategy, first and foremost, get a single strategy. It's not just branding. You can't have a branding campaign without digital. That's ridiculous. But you also can't have just digital without branding if you hope to become a household name.
Correct.
The fundamental difference is there's a difference between name recognition and brand recognition. And there's a big difference between being a household name and people knowing that your brand exists. And one is that they know, like, and trust you. And the other one is that they know you. And ultimately, that's the fundamental difference between them clicking on your Google link, whatever that might be, or driving themselves directly to the website or whatever the case might be, and picking someone else in the sea of sameness that is LSA and Google Maps and frankly anything above the fold in a search for home services today. So
talk a little bit about on how important is it to be the household brand name, or having someone that just knows that your brand exists?
Well, that could be split up into a lot of semantic conversation, but the market size obviously matters. The intention of the owner. Some owners want to have a lifestyle business, and others want to blow their stuff up and have huge successful companies. Both are successes. If you have a $500,000 company that makes you a good living and you're happy, that's success. So defining that success and what's successful to a customer and to a potential client is first and foremost. We work with the ones who are looking to aggressively grow in their marketplaces, and that they want to have the dominant share of market for their marketplace. That's when branding becomes a critical element. There's two other parts to that. You know, when we look at things like HVAC, which is highly seasonal, pay-per-click doesn't do the job that you're expecting it to do in the seasons where the demand isn't there. You can't create clicks. Google doesn't create clicks. Digital marketers don't create clicks. If a person's not looking, they're not going to find your thing, because that's the reality of it. There's always going to be a percentage of people in market for whatever reasons, and you'll get your fair share if you've got a decent digital setup. But branding is about getting your disproportionately unfair share, right? It's about having them think about you, know, like, and trust you before they need your thing, so that pay-per-click may end up being a reality for the person who's a bit frantic and, oh shoot, the pipes burst, and they're typing in something and they see your name, and then they tie it to the brand, message that we've been running on the TV or the radio, and go, oh yeah, them, and click on you, and you win, in this otherwise sea of sameness. The flip side of it is that they just direct search you in the first place because you're their chosen provider. There's only two ways to win in marketing, and in business. You either have to take somebody else's pie, or you have to get a bigger pie. So we want to do both, but taking other people's pie is usually the easiest one when you look at the stats that most people are undecided when it comes to a home service provider. The ones that are typically on club memberships with somebody else, and the remaining few are very often the transactional customers that are the worst people to deal with in the first place.
Right. The ones looking for a special offer, a discount, a coupon, something like that.
Yeah, their priority is to ensure that they get the lowest overall price of both the purchase and the cost of ownership, where the person who's maybe a little bit busier and doesn't have time to deal with that nonsense is looking for competent convenience. They're looking for the right solution the first time, and they're willing to pay a premium for that.
So walk me through, let's take one of the clients that you're working with of ours. What is the strategy typically behind? Because I know I've read a lot of the content that y'all sent over, kind of like, first year, second year, third year, and kind of expectations. So what is the Wizard of Ads strategy that makes it, work the way that it does, based off of how y'all time things out and the way that you are releasing certain things, and you're only in certain channels? You're not going to market for everything all at one time, even though a lot of the content and the catch things that you're coming up with, whether it's jingles or catchphrases, like all of those things, are going to work, but why not just release everything at one time?
Yeah, good question. It comes down to a number of different things. There's a few things to unpack there. The first thing is that it takes time to establish trust, right? If you went to the bar on Saturday night to pick up a partner, I'm trying to find the correct approach here. I'm usually way more saucy than that. And you pick them up and you have a great evening that evening. Great. That you've made a sale, right? But that person's probably not the person that you're going to marry. You're not going to have that lifetime value of client, so to speak. Where you go to, church or IKEA or the grocery store and meet a lovely person who you establish a relationship and a rapport with, and work through some of those smaller sales, like going out on dates and having chit chat and conversation, meeting the family, all those other fun things to lead up to the bigger sale, right? At the end of the day, we looked at that from a whole anthropological standpoint. There's a guy named Desmond, I want to say Ferguson, but I think the last name is wrong, that talks about these 12 steps of intimacy and the natural human psychological processes that people go through, from making eye contact from across the room to consummation. At the end of the day, humans are humans. No matter where I went in the universe, nothing changed when it came to psychology. Now, cultures and economies changed, but people didn't. And we can rely on these principles of human behavior, and we can rely on these principles of persuasion that we just need to tap into. When we take the time, like Roy has, to explore this from a standpoint of neuroscience, from massive trauma and the impact that it has on the chemicals balance of the brain, so the biology, the quantum physics, and all of these different angles of approach on the scientific side, and then on the artistic side, playing those scientific approaches against things like Monet and his use of black and shadow, unlike anybody in history of painting had done before, which created a whole new genre of fine art. Robert Frank, who taught us about frameline magnetism and the impact that you can have by how you choose to represent a photograph. Robert Frost and Ernest Hemingway and the poetry and the frankness of words, all of these things teach us things that you would never, ever, ever learn in marketing school. And when we approach it that way, we've developed over 35 years many hundreds of devices and strategies that are so divergent from what everyone else is doing, they have no idea what we're doing. And we're really okay with that because we're very quietly taking over the world with through our clients by doing exactly what the human brain needs to take it from the electrical part of the memory, like your RAM in a computer that will forget things, the great eraser of sleep that gets rid of things and removes that information to be replaced with new information, back to the chemical part of the memory. Not only that, we have to get it into the memory in the first place, and the only way to do that is through Broca's area on the left side of the brain. And when it goes through Broca's, that's the big gatekeeper of the brain. It's saying, whoa, 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 you're super boring. I already know what you're going to say. You're not in. Versus, hey, that's interesting. Let's let you inside my imagination to picture it. And when I get to picture it, I can then facilitate it as an opportunity for the decision-making center, which has zero capacity for words. So when Roy says, when we win the heart of the customer, the mind is surely to follow. And the only thing that we need to recognize from that is that the wallet is attached to the mind. And people are much more willing to shop with us when they have first seen themselves do the thing that we introduce to them through the way that we write our strategies and put them out. So too much too soon can break that, and not enough too soon can break that. But we're also looking at all kinds of other little devices like those jingles where we're creating an embed code that allows for deep chemistry recall, the big larger than life moments that help with retention, right? It's like that giant pink elephant that lives in your brain that you allow to pop up when you're reminded of giant pink elephants. We want to take up as much real estate in the brain as we possibly can.
I love it, and I'm extremely fascinated with it. I'm deeply invested into what you guys are doing, especially with Dylan and his team at All Heart. Getting some of the feedback from some of the employees and like their friends and family that are hearing the catchphrases and jingles that are on the radio, and it is sticking, and like they're actually having customers call to schedule, and they're like repeating some of the phrases that they're hearing. So it's neat to see it really in action and it working.
It's very, very different than digital marketing in so much as and I say digital marketing a bit too generically, because digital marketing has a branded component and a lead gen component to it. It is a presence thing as much as it is a conversion thing. And both equally and uniquely as important. I'm super excited that we're working together on a Facebook campaign for recruitment that we're going to treat as a branded campaign, because just like a customer who is a person and a candidate who is a person, they need to establish and build trust. And who are we going to go after? We're going after the people that aren't looking for a job per se. They're already working somewhere. They're not shopping on Indeed, which is a reactive location to do advertising, versus putting it out there to the universe. we're intending to write these things in such a way that we're not only talking to the person about the person and their sensibilities of what this person is. We're not talking about the job. We're talking about the person. And when the person's wife or brother or sister or mother or son or uncle or aunt or best friend hears it and goes, "Oh, that's John," right?
Yeah.
That's when we've bridged a gap that is very challenging to bridge, but has massive positive ramifications for all heart who's looking for these skilled workers that are going to put up their hand and say, "Hey, I'm I'm all heart guy. I want to be that person," and that has power. And ultimately, that's the only way you can grow in the exponential sense. And that's ultimately what our goal is to do, is to not just kind of get you your 3 to 10% lift a year, but to take over your entire marketplace and to go that much further.
Yeah, and I think, you touched on there, having that person that wasn't looking for a job to say, like, this is where I belong. I am this person that fits into this place. And you're gonna see that you'll have to cut, you won't be having to do the $10,000 bonus and all these big, ridiculous, in my opinion, things that contractors are doing just to get a body in the door to be able to fulfill the work they're doing. Instead, you're going to be able to build a culture where the best people in your market want to come work for you. And I think that's the big difference.
You're spot on, Jonathan. There's never been a time that I've recommended a customer or a client of mine put out a retention or a signing bonus, because when you build a culture that people want to be at, and then tell the people about your culture and how you would fit into it, you're going to attract the type of people that you want to attract. Now, there are other elements that you can do to improve that, be it the compensation structures and all those other things that align with what you're saying to be your reality.
Right.
But at the end of the day, yeah, when you do things right operationally, the gimmicky stuff that's attracting the wrong person, just like when you offer a super cheapy offer, who are you attracting? Right? You're attracting all the wrong people. Groupon is a brilliant example of the epic failure that coupons are. And digital companies often rely on that coupon as a method of proving their worth, and rightfully so, because they're always forced to, against all of the other digital marketers are willing to do anything to prove their worth and get you any lead regardless of the quality. But when we really look at it and recognize that, it becomes a red herring. And it's a red herring because a relational customer that didn't give a two hoots about your coupon is not going to be stupid. They're going to take it. Right? So the person that you gave the coupon to who didn't want it gets it, and the person who only is getting it to have it is also getting it. And in both cases, you lost money for no reason. You do the right things and you stack the value. You just don't have to worry about those things. And we've gotten really good at figuring out how to stack the appropriate value in the home service industry so that it resonates at the same level, but it repels the cheapy guy who's looking for one chuck truck to come out and do it for beer money.
Well, we've got 1,000 more things that we could touch on here. So I definitely would love to have you back in the future and be able to figure the next round of questioning out, because I truly feel that everything that you have to offer and deliver, it is something that every single home service contractor out there needs to hear and understand. They need to start thinking down the road and not in the current, in the present, of how do I make payroll this month, or how am I going to get rich this, heat season, but how do I maybe possibly build that generational wealth? And I think that comes from owning your market, and you got to have a brand that becomes that household name. So I know we're running low on time. So I want to wrap this, our last talking segment here, because I feel like this could be brilliant. You've mentioned a couple of things about the universe. You've used the word universe a few times. So I want to hear, what does Ryan think is what all lives inside of the universe? And, like, what is your feelings on alien life and other lives on other planets? I want to hear, Ryan. Shoot.
Well, you know what? The reality is that there has to be, statistically speaking, there has to be life out there. And um, to me, more importantly than anything else, because I'm a person who kind of does tend to live in the here and now as much as I possibly can, and I have to kind of continue to tell myself all the time, whether there is or there isn't kind of those extraterrestrial opportunities, in my lifetime, super exciting to think about, but. Um, uh, more than anything, I think the universe is made up of resonance, of vibration, of positive and negative energy.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big woo woo, rubbing crystals together and stuff kind of guy at all, but I do genuinely believe that there is this stuff that we don't understand. One of the first times that M theory that was ever described and explained was at the Wizard Academy, which is the theory that unifies Newtonian physics and quantum physics, which both have been proven to be, without a doubt, to the 16th and 19th power of 10 to be true, which means that they're irrevocably true. Equal to that, they can't exist together. So if both of them are without a doubt true, Newtonian physics and quantum physics, but neither one of them can live in the same space at the same time, then there has to be more to the universe than we really understand. And when we bring that down to the things that matter most to human existence with prefrontal cortexes, it comes down to communication. And that's really what the root of all of this is. When we look at M theory and how it ties these two things together, and quite frankly can even justify the existence of God, not a topic that we have time or me the depth of knowledge to get into, but go visit the Wizard Academy and you'll see exactly what I mean when you get into some of these fascinating conversations as we do. What it does is it tells us there's way more to communication than we're allowing ourselves to see, and that if we really just allow ourselves to accept that some of this soft stuff that we can't measure is profoundly important, that we're going to have way more success in growing our businesses and motivating our staff and honestly persuading people in a way that matters, because of this energy and this belief that I have in this energy, is the choice of whether or not you want to walk a road of short-term thinking and good intentions that are taking you on a path to hell, or whether or not you're intentionally finding the ways to do things better and serve people better for a better existence.
I love it. And I truly think it makes that concept of what you were saying of serving people with high and good intentions, it makes that a whole lot easier as a business owner when you are the leader in your market to do the right thing for the right people all the time, because you don't have that stress and worry of running your business month to month. Like, how do I even do this job because I don't have the employees, or how do I do this work because I'm COD with my manufacturer right now. Like when you become a different business owner, it allows you, because I want to feel that most people want to have that positive energy vibration and want to live life and with the best intentions of helping everyone, right? And I feel like their daily situations a lot of time take that away from them because they're stressed all the time.
Yeah.
How do I make ends meet tomorrow is really what they're thinking about.
Well, as a kind of an exclamation mark on exactly, this conversation is the personification of the ego. The devil is the ego, and when we look at survival mode versus thriving mode, and if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we've got the first two layers, physiological and survival needs. That's survival mode, and when you're down in there, your ego lives down there, and he's doing everything he can to pull your arse back down into survival mode all the time through your hubris and your bravado, and as much as your self-worth and expectations that you put on yourself, the limiting beliefs that you have around individual success. When we start recognizing that there's correlations between tribes and ourselves and our actual foundation of needs, we can start to recognize how to release and let go of that ego. And when we do that, we can embrace a whole new existence. You know, Dylan is a brilliant example of that. He is very representative of a person with an extraordinarily clear and strong purpose, and it has a positive resonance that attracts people to him. From me and the Wizard of Ads, who are pretty picky about the people we like to work with, because we want to work with winners and champions and people who are the cut of the right cloth, but also employees and people that want to do business with him. Right. So it all you know, fits together, and it's not a, you know, a simple linear equation. It's that algebra equation that you're talking about from earlier.
And for those of you that have a hard time understanding what we're talking about and may need to get to a different zone, they have, you know, herbal essence and gummies, and there's different things out there that can help you get to this
DMT,
understanding.
Yes. Right,
right. So, all right. Well, Ryan, listen, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know you and the Wizard of Ads and the whole concept a little bit better. I hope you'll take me up on that offer to come back, because obviously there's a lot more that we can unpack. And I feel that being able to give your knowledge and your understanding of brand and creating the dominating factor and being that that brand that everyone knows and remembers is so important. And I feel like it's going to open up the minds to so many more home service companies and let them stop thinking small or thinking, you know, how do I be the biggest in this market just for the summertime? Like, you know, I want to own every single lead and opportunity instead of owning the entire backyard and owning that brand. So I want to talk about lifetime value of a customer. There's a lot more that I want to talk about next time you come back. So I want to thank you. I appreciate you being here. And, you know, you're a genius when it comes to this stuff. I'm looking forward to getting to know you a whole lot more.
Hey, my pleasure, man. It's been a real treat getting to know you, and I look forward to more great conversations. I'm a bit of a sucker when it comes to intelligent talk.
I appreciate it. Thank you, man.
Take care.